I work from home a good bit, and the area that I work from home in is very exposed. I feel like I'm just running out of room all the time. Sam and I seeing this as a home that we want to stay in the long run. Our thoughts were, how can we make our house last us for longer? And then when I took this new position back in August, going to be working from home a lot more, that was our whole reason for needing to expand.
After our initial meeting, just seeing, you guys are so organized, like you could tell you knew what you were doing. Having Deborah from the design side to help us with some ideas was awesome. So I think really just that first meeting, we had a lot of trust that you were gonna follow through on what you said.
We've had frustrations in the past with even just building. We built this house several years ago, and we definitely got burned in a few different areas, lots of frustrations. It just made a big difference in knowing and feeling secure that what we signed up for is what we're gonna get.
I was very impressed. I think if things did change, we heard about it pretty quickly. Even when there were slight changes to the schedule, it was very well communicated. It wasn't a surprise to us, which, like Ashton said, from our first build, we were, things would go by for weeks without hearing about why something was delayed. So I was very impressed by the communication, the organization. I think how everything was in builder trend was really helpful, just to document, all the things we agreed upon and see the timelines and the selections and all that. I was very, very pleased with the process.
Being able to ask a very direct conversation and get a very direct answer was very helpful for me. If there was ever something that came out, there was some level of compromise. There was never like, oh, no, it's this layer, no way. Not to go on for too long, but like this, but odds were great.
Yeah.
That's a big deal to have all of your subs. Everyone was very polite, very respectful, very communicative, really good feeling, especially when you have somebody in your home that you're living in.
With our timeline, we weren't too concerned with the timeline. It was more just the trust and that you were going to do what you said you were going to do, that we weren't going to end up with spending the same amount of money for something we did not expect, like a lower level of, doing the job. So,
and knowing that if something went awry, that you would make it right. You had that feeling.
We go back to our old builder, because that was only a couple of years ago. Anytime something went a little bit awry, it was always an issue. And there was never a easy conversation and it was going to get fixed. It was like a fight. And was it written down? Do you have a text message saying that we agreed to this?
Right.
So I think a few times, early on, we were almost gearing up for pushback on some of the things we had talked about. It was just very nice to have the conversations and be like, yeah, we'll fix it. No big deal. Move on. Not a problem. Just because that was not what we were used to in the past. I'm a project manager at work, during my day job. So I definitely see the same thing. You make a schedule, try to stick to it, but it's always going to tweak slightly. So I feel like y'all are upfront with us that it's not going to be perfect. And I always saw pretty well communicated that, when things changed, and even if it was just slightly, that we were made aware. So I was very, pleased with the schedule. And I think everything was contained to this room for the most part. You could tell everyone cleaned up every single day after they finished. So I never really had any issue with how anyone left the house.
It was really cool even just having Nick here and having he's got a family, right? Or some of his subs, and it's just, I don't know, it just gives it a different feel, more of a small company, local, just, good people working.
What we would have ended up with had we designed it and figured it all out ourselves, wouldn't have been anywhere near this cool. So having you guys come in and help us figure out what all this was going to look like, it's turned out much better than I think either one of us expected. I think originally we were just hoping for walls and a floor just so we could use the space, and then it's turned into a really awesome room that's going to really stand out in the house. So I think absolutely met expectations and really exceeded them.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to execute something like this to this level. So, y'all did a great job. It's definitely worth paying for in the long run. Just knowing you can trust the people, knowing you have the quality, because sometimes you end up paying the same in the long run with somebody that might upfront tell you that it's not going to be as expensive. But then maybe they don't live up to what they said they were going to do. You have to get somebody else to do it later on because they didn't do it right the first time, things like that. So
that's what we didn't with the other company. We didn't really know that. It was more I will finish your room for this price, versus with you guys, we had a very, consensus agreement on what was going to be done, most of this was thought out before we even, you know, talked about prices versus, yeah, I'll go look up there for 5 minutes and send you a quote.
This is the solution to me working at home in a comfortable environment with the space I need. And this is the solution to also having somewhere else to hang out that's not just our living room. So when we have friends over, we'll come up here, you know, have a drink together in a really cool environment that is kind of feels like a highway from the room, from the rest of the house. And yeah, so it's allowed us to feel also a little bit more spread out.
Yeah.
Because we don't have children yet. We will have children in the next few years. And this house feels more dual with children now that we have this extra space.